Beneath central Kentucky, in the United States, thousands of visitors go to the Mammoth Cave National Park, best known for the tragic story of Floyd Collins. It is a vast system of tunnels, caves, and caverns, appropriately called the Mammoth Cave, with over 400 miles of known passageways and more being discovered. It is by far one of the longest cave systems in the world, drawing in visitors willing to take tours. It is certainly a geological wonder. There is probably something you don't know about them, and that would be that the caves are also known for an inhuman experiment once carried out here, which is one of history's darkest oddities. Welcome to Tales from the Den. It all began with a man by the name of John Croghan, who was a physician living back in the 19th century, whose main area of study was finding a cure for tuberculosis. This was an era in history in which tuberculosis was a disease which was poorly understood, mysterious, and terrifying in equal measure at the time, also called various other names, such as pulmonary consumption and the White Plague. The bacterial lung condition during that era of crude medical knowledge was highly feared, and for one to contract the disease usually meant a death sentence. At the time, very little was known about it, about how it spread, and what exactly it did to the body, or how long one could live if infected. There was no known treatment for it other than a healthy diet, rest, fresh air, and light exercise, which did little to alleviate the condition of the patients. And so there was a great push of resources aimed trying to find ways to stop it and to separate those infected from the rest of the population. Dr. Croghan was very active in this endeavor, especially so since he himself also contracted the disease, further pushing his urgency to find a cure. During Croghan's research into tuberculosis treatments, he stumbled across tales of the Mammoth Cave. It was said that the air and darkness of the cave had sort of a healing and preservative effect, with stories common of how nothing seemed to ever deteriorate down there, with even dead animals barely decomposing. Numerous workers at the cave salt mine claimed that they had miraculously been cured of all physical ailments from being down in the cave, that they never got sick, or that the atmosphere inside gave them increased strength. Croghan became fascinated by these wonderful stories, as well as convinced that the Mammoth Cave, for whatever reasons, had remarkable and mysterious healing properties, which gave him an idea. He thought that if tuberculosis patients were to live down there for an extended period of time, they might get better, if not be completely cured. And so his odd experiment began. Croghan started purchasing the cave in 1839 for $10,000 US, which was quite a lot of money back in the day, but he was from a wealthy family, so he didn't really have trouble doing so. In addition to his hopes to conduct tours in the cave to help fund his operation, his main order of business was to create a large health resort for victims of tuberculosis. To this end, he began construction of 10 wooden cottages and 2 made out of stone, which were situated about half a mile into the darkness of the cave. When this was completed in 1842, Croghan began recruiting patients to live there, finding 15 people willing to live in the caves indefinitely until their condition was cured. Although living in a cave did not seem to be a desirable way of life, at the time, these people were desperate. Tuberculosis was considered an incurable terminal illness, and they had nothing else to lose. Although these patients had confidence in Dr. Croghan's claims that their new home would cure them, living conditions certainly did leave a lot to be desired. Besides the claustrophobic and eerie lack of daylight, throwing their perception of time off, and also living in complete isolation, it was much to be desired. The air was always uncomfortably cold, but was encouraged because it was thought that the cool air was better for their condition. Meals were sparse, brought in by assistants, and there wasn't much to do down there, other than read books or hold sermons to pass the time in the eternal night of the cavern. Occasionally they would light fires, and the smoke from the fires, as well as fumes from the burning lamps, would make their coughing even worse though. Throughout all this time, all the tour groups would often pass through and spot the pale, sickly patients lurking about in the gloom, looking like ghouls and monsters, the frequent coughing echoing through the dark even when they were not visible. There were many reports from visitors who were startled by the disturbing, spectral appearance of the patients. One worker at the cave said they looked more like a company of skeletons than anything else, and a tour visitor once described it as a bizarre scene, seeing nothing but pale spectral figures in dressing gowns, moving along the passageways, slipping in and out of the shadowed huts, the silence of the cave being broken by hollowed-out coughing and muttered conversations. Some descriptions were even more creepy and sad still, such as one visitor who said, when they reached the light again, it was discovered that all their eyes were perfectly black, no matter what their original color had been. Over the next 5 months, these patients would die, one by one, in the dark, cold isolation. And although a few of them reported feeling better and healthier, during those 5 months, one left when he could not bear living in a cave anymore, and 5 died of their condition, after which the experiment was ended and considered a failure. Krogan would continue to use the cave for tours using the tour guides, while also becoming more sufficient in developing it as a tourist attraction and mapping large portions of it out. But he never did reopen his cave colony, despite still holding hope that it could work. He would never officially publish the results of his bizarre experiment and avoided speaking publicly about it. However, for many it was not considered a complete failure. Many in the medical field were inspired by Krogan's ideas, and the idea that cave air could treat tuberculosis continued for some time, with many tuberculosis sanitariums emulating these conditions for their own treatment regimens. Dr. Krogan would finally succumb to the disease in 1849, and tuberculosis would eventually be cured with the development of the BCG vaccine in 1921. And the discovery of the antibiotic streptomycin in 1943. To this day, the 2 stone huts that were built for Krogan's subterranean colony still stand in the Mammoth Cave and can be seen by taking the Mammoth Cave tour. The huts have also managed to attract various rumors of ghosts and hauntings. Visitors have reported hearing ghostly whispers and coughing coming from the darkness near the huts, as well as seeing spectral pale apparitions. Paranormal activity has also been reported from a place called the Corpse Rock, where the bodies of Krogan's dead patients were kept there until they could be properly buried. There are also reports of seeing the ghost of the tour guides who died in the cave, as well as numerous reports of people feeling unseen hands poke and prod at them. It certainly seems to be the sort of place where one would think negative forces from the past would linger there, and whether it is really haunted or not, the story of John Krogan and his subterranean colony of terminal patients is certainly a weird and perplexing historical oddity that will always be remembered as dark history. Thanks for watching. Till next time.